make sure that you're uploading things to the website, please. All right, so there's not much here. Oh, I can see that I didn't put a tornado in there. I didn't say that the progress was due in the tornado, right? I gave everyone spring break off, right? Correct?
Yes, you said just to have mostly the volcano finished, or
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Right, but there's a couple of things to look at here, so let's just look at those first. All right, so Millicent. Okay, so are you going to do any kind of color?
Yes, I'm going to add color.
Okay. Well, I think that in the process of illustration, I think that doing a tonal study is always a good idea. But I think that it's really dark. I think that when you're looking at any references from atmospheric perspective, that remember that the darker parts of the illustration are always closer to the camera, always. And that as you go away from the camera, they get lighter. And that is due to just a couple of things. One is, the first and main thing is particles in the air. If it's dust or steam or water vapor or whatever. And then the quality of light. So just use this as always as a good example when you're doing your tonal studies. Atmospheric perspective is also called, oh, I just lost it. I thought it was on the tip of my head, but it's not. It's also called something else. I forget what it's called, but remember that you could have reverse atmospheric perspective too. So that I think we just saw like a little cave down here. Let me see a little cave where things are darker far away and lighter up close. But just use the standard examples of atmospheric perspective when you're studying things tonally. Because I think that you've got the composition, I think, is looking okay. Again, I'm not quite convinced that this branch of the tree needs to be so big because it's in the way of your smoke. I think that you might want to look at it and really kind of look at the aesthetics and bring it down just a little bit, maybe make the branches a little more thin, something like that. But I like the idea of the lightning striking and causing the fire. I like your little glow. So what else are you going to put in this shot? You've got smoke, lightning, fire.
I'm going to add the tornado, which will enter into the scene from the right.
I don't think you have enough room. You want to put a tornado in here?
Yes.
I would say that you don't have enough room in your composition. I would put the tornado in a different place. Maybe put the tornado and the water splash together. You know, and this is a good reason why I want to do doing the drawings, the sketches, right? Can you see that when I do this on my Apple?
Yes.
Okay, so, you know, like in this drawing of the tornado right here, I don't have a water splash. In this one here, the water splash is a little small. And in this set of thumbnails, I don't isolate the water splash except for right here. I'm like, oh, maybe a mud bubble and the water splash and rain, because that makes sense. It's all water-based. You know, if I was doing number 4 over again, I could think, oh, maybe I want to do mud bubbles, rain, water splash, and steam, just to keep it all water-based, right? But in your composition, I think that your tornado would just be a little too small. I think that you could certainly have, and you should have eruption. So if you're making notes, you should probably maybe have a far away volcano back here that just has projectiles coming out of it and lava. Because you don't really need to have lava coming out of any one particular volcano. And in fact, it kind of makes sense that if you've got a volcano that's just pushing out ash and has the smoke on it, that could be the primary animation for that volcano. But the one in the back over here, remember your rules of perspective, that it has the projectiles and the lava.
Okay.
Hold on one second. I'm trying to get zoom. There we go. Okay, so I think this little bush right here is okay. I might limit it to just okay. You might want to trim off the top right there. And I think that this is a big part of what today is about too, is just about composition and aesthetics. So if you just get your little bush right here, and remember that this bush can be dark. And I think that, you know, this right here looks like it's part of a downed tree, and that's fine. But I think that if you wanted to limit the branch of your tree, you know, maybe something like this.
So just make it thinner.
Yeah.
And smaller.
Yeah, smaller and thinner.
Okay.
You know, I think that right there is fine. And I think that you can have lots of detail in here for the bark, and having your fire here is good. That's a good thing. And your volcano then is fine. And I like the fact that you've got this cool stylized smoke. And I think for the most part, it's working. When the first 2 times I played it there, it didn't look like anything was going backwards, you know, so that's good. I'm not sure what you want to do with this line right here. I think it could be a little bit more organic. Could just be maybe, you got kind of to think about what was going on back there. Maybe there's a separation, there's a gully or a cliff or something. But just by your rules of perspective, if you've got a vanishing point, let's say you have a 1 point perspective and that this is your horizon. So this is your vanishing point here. So that means that you've got, if your volcanoes are relatively the same size, that you would pick a volcano that was maybe here. And I'm looking at it. I think that I'm going to move it over just a little bit. And the reason that I wanted to move it over a little bit was just because this will give you room to play with the projectiles. Oh, and the thing I was going to say was I like the idea of your volcano smoke going this way and your clouds going this way. I think that that's fine. I think that in nature, you can have things that are swirling around, that's fine. But I would do the projectiles over here. And then but I think that what it does is it gives you only a really small place to play with the lava itself. And remember too, that the lava is not a huge component. It's just that it's in our list of things to do and it has to be there. So I think that what you can do, if you really thought about it, you've got like a focal point right here. You've got your cinematic third, lower third, right third focal point. I don't think you need to do a mud bubble right here. It might be kind of silly, right? Because I think that you've got everything worked out pretty well. What might make sense though is if you've got this little plant right here, and just in the same way that you've got like the clouds moving ambient in the background, it might make sense to take this little plant and take these guys just as elements and animate them like just going back and forth in the wind, just moving just a little bit back and forth, back and forth. And as soon as you could pivot on a point right here. It doesn't have to be too, in fact, it's so close to the camera that it shouldn't be too obvious, but just maybe a little bit of ambient motion right there, wind blowing these little pieces of weeds back and forth. So I think this looks good. You could actually work in lava right here. Just like one main lava flow, right? And then just get just like we said, get the nodes working so that it animates in just 8 frames. And then if you want, I think that you've got a nice little space here where you can actually try steam and just make it small. And remember the steam, it just dissipates as it goes out to nothing. So I think that would be my suggestions for your layout. And remember just the rules of atmospheric perspective. Keep this stuff dark and then lighter as it gets towards the background. All right, you want to grab a screenshot of that?
Yes, I just got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, Joseph, volcano. Oh, lightning, Millicent. You could put lightning in your composition for the volcano too. Oh, you already have, you have it already. I'm sorry, you're right. I'm sorry. Okay, so Joseph, I think this is working pretty well. But I have some notes for you. Are you ready, Joseph, Mr. Joseph? Your microphone is off, Joseph. All right,
yeah, sorry.
So I have some notes for you. All right, I think that when you're looking at any kind of illustration, you always really do want to start with a tonal study just to make sure that your colors, your saturation is going to be as either realistic or as cool as possible. But the first thing that I would do is I would limit the shape of this little lagoon right here so that it is more oval. I think that it reads just a little funny right here. So see if you can just limit the outer edge of that little lagoon, bring this down a little bit. So the other thing is that I think that these palm trees are okay. This one is okay, and this one is okay, but paint these lighter. Paint these a lighter green and even a lighter green back here, just to give the illusion of, again, the atmospheric perspective. And do the same thing with this volcano. So this little ridge right here should be darker. That's a lowercase d. And then this one is this one is medium. And then this one is lighter. And then this one's lighter, even, double lighter, lighter. And then this one is like very, very faint. Now, did you do this in Toon Boom?
Yes.
All right, so what you might want to try is isolate this color and put a gradient in it so that it's darker blue up here. So I'll just put darker blue PB and lighter blue on the bottom. And do you know how to do the gradients in Toon Boom?
No.
All right, so I'll make a note. I'll show you how to do that. All right, and then I think that you want to paint this smoke that's coming out of here darker. I think that you've accidentally got like a face working in the clouds themselves. And so one thing that you would want to try to do is paint this more of a charcoal gray. So, you know, this is, oh, it didn't take it. So not black. I don't have a charcoal gray here in Zoom. But you can see that when you do this, it immediately reads as more of a volcano kind of smoke. So paint this core part darker, and then see how the white rim here looks. You might be able to get away with this white rim being okay, but what my intuition is that you might want to try this as a medium gray right here, and then a lighter gray for the highlight, so that it's not technically a hole. You know what I mean? So that it's not technically a hole. And then I think that, you know, these guys right here are starting to look like a face, and one way to get around that is to do the opposite. And so if this is dark gray, then this line right here would be a medium gray. And then the highlight right here would be a light gray. And then this line right here would be a medium dark gray. And then this could be black. That would be your shadow. All right, and then remember too, what you're looking at here is a function of spheres, right? As we were learning how to animate this smoke coming out of your volcano, you've technically got spheres coming out of the volcano itself. And so it's okay to have the idea of holes. You know, I suggested that, but I think that once you paint this, you might see that it works just fine, and you remove the idea of it being looking like a face. Because I think that the idea of catching the holes would be the in-between parts of where the spheres don't quite catch up to each other. So if you wanted to, you could go back in and maybe try to introduce a hole, maybe this hole closes up too. It starts out and then it closes up. All right, and then the other thing that you could try is little bits that are hanging, little bits of smoke that are on the outside. You know, I think that'll help make it read like smoke. All right, then your next note is that I think this lava needs some love. You got to remember, you've got molten rock, right? I think that if the volcano is spewing out all this ash and smoke, it could certainly have lava. But if the lava was coming from the ridge, the whole upper part of the volcano, this would be coated with lava coming down. And you could certainly do that. Nature has a way of like being pretty awesome. But so I don't think that it would be realistic to have just like this ridge right here. I disagree with this ridge. So either do something like this, and I'm gonna Z back out of this a little bit. Or if you wanted these, then just have, and I know it's kind of hard to see, but have it come down and then get rid of this part here. And then just have this one over here. Now, obviously, I think that you've got a place to try lava coming into this pond and having steam down here, which I think that might be kind of really nice, right? Are you going to do a water splash right here?
I have it in.
Well, I think
I have a water splash in. I think it's just lost in the color. Or did I
didn't
render it?
I didn't hear your words. I'm sorry.
I have a water splash in the animation in the full
Okay.
thing, unless
Right.
I turned off the layer by accident.
All right. What are you going to do over here?
I have mud bubbles in that
Oh,
swamp
okay.
looking area down there.
All right. All right. So I think that you also might want to try extending the bottom of these clouds back here. And remember that I had the opportunity to work at Colossal Pictures back in the day, and the whole team was like crazy about clouds. They had huge research and development team just on clouds, because they were doing like realistic things for movies at that point. All right, and I think the same thing applies to this little ridge of lava over here. Go back and study what it looks like. You might want to maybe just have a little bit of lava that's not moving. And then remember your projectiles. Okay. All right, so do you want to take a screenshot of that?
Yeah.
Okay, and I have a note about gradient, so I'll go over that in just a moment. All right, so does anybody have any tornadoes? Anything that you want to talk about for tornadoes yet? Okay, so, and we have time, we have a whole bunch of weeks, so that's okay. All right, so let me cover this first thing here. This is being recorded. And so hopefully the couple of you who aren't here will see this, but my daughter is graduating University of Redlands. She's getting her credentials so she can teach high school art, photography, design, painting, that kind of stuff. And she's graduating, so I have to be down in Redlands 2 weeks from today. So I need to, I don't want to sub this class because I need the money. So I have 2 specific days that I'm thinking of for subbing, and I wanted to throw those at you. The first is Thursday before our class meets in 2 weeks. That would be April 21st. What does everyone's schedule look like on April 21st? Either noon.
I won't be available that day. I'll have work in class all day.
All day?
Yes.
Okay, so what about Monday, the 25th?
I don't think I can do Monday. I have a class on Monday.
All day?
Give me a moment.
We have 9, noon, or 3.
My class on Monday is from 8:30 in the morning to 1.
Okay. So what
So
about
if-
Monday in the afternoon, like at 2 or like at 3?
Yeah, I can do Monday in the afternoon after the first class.
Okay. And that would be like, I could set it at, I could set it to be like at 4 o'clock, right?
Yes.
And we don't have
anytime
to, we don't
after
have to
1.
do the full 3 hours, but I just have to find a day. So Millicent, what date would be better for you? Monday or Friday or Monday or Friday? I'm sorry, Thursday or Monday?
Monday. in the
Monday?
afternoon.
Okay.
Monday sounds good for me as well.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. And that's a 4 o'clock class, right?
Yeah, I can do Monday.
Okay. Mijang,
Yes, I can do.
I'm trying to figure out the sub day for 2 weeks from today. Are you available Monday, the 25th? At like 4 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay, good. And I'll record that so your classmates can pick that one up too. Okay, good. Thank you, everybody. And I will send out a reminder. I'll talk to the school. Okay, good. All right, so let me go back here. All right, so going on right here. So let's do the first thing about gradients. And this is for Joseph, right? And all of you who are just thinking about any kind of a gradient. All right, so I'm going to make a new layer just for the gradient. We're just going to call it gradient. And in this, I'm going to just draw a shape. Actually, I want to find out where that little layer went. Here, it's right here. You know, it's funny because in the world of animation, whenever you do anything new, it should always go on top as default. All right, so in this gradient layer right here, I'm just going to draw a shape. And I'm just going to make it part of the, you know what? I'm not really liking that color. So let's pick this color. All right, so I've got this little shape right here and I want to paint it. So I pick the paint bucket tool, but I'm going to have to pick a color. So I don't want to paint it the same color as the outline here. So I'm going to make a new color and I'm just going to call this D1. And remember, I'm doing this just because it's much easier to keep track of things, to stay organized. I'm going to also take this D1 and slide it under a D1. So D1A and D1 are right next to each other. I'm going to double click on the little blue line here because I right click and selected swatch mode. Remember that looking at your colors like this is really difficult. I much prefer swatch mode. That's right. I'm going to double click on this light blue because if you double click on the actual name of the color, it'll just allow you to change the name. So you double click on the blue outline and then it takes you to the, oh, it's already open. It takes you to the color picker and then switch to multi-wheel mode and then pick gradient. Once you've picked gradient, you can see that you've got 2 different colors here. And so for our example here, we're going to pick this color here to just be a lighter color of brown. And you can see the gradient working immediately, right? All right, so, and right now it's a linear gradient. You can make it radial, but we'll just keep it linear. And remember, you have alpha control. And remember, this color picker is the most brilliant color picker in the world. If you slide this one over, it makes it darker. If you click right here, it'll, I'm sorry. Oh, in the middle, you have to click in the middle. It'll add another one. You can have 3-part gradient, but I'm going to Z out of that. It won't let me Z out of it. All right, so this is my gradient just as it is right now. With my paint bucket tool, remember that you've got tons of different ways to paint. Paint, paint unpainted, repaint, paint, stroke, close gap. So I'm just going to paint unpainted. You get that little U right there, and I'm going to click over here. I'm going to say paint. And I'm going to zoom in on it just really carefully, because remember we talked about the idea of closing gaps. And I'm sorry, hold on. And chasing vectors, so that if this was not a real clean shape, I would get like a hole in it. As it is right now, I've got 2 different shapes, which is fine. So then you want to go to your direct select tool. I'm sorry, I lied. Your direct select tool and hit edit gradient texture, and then just click it. So this is the area that's being affected, and I can move the center point of the gradient around. And you can see I'm getting a little strange artifacting right there at the end. So that's kind of funky, but I do want this to be oriented in another way. And so I'm going to wait till my cursor becomes the rotation tool. There we go. And I'm going to put it this way. And then I'm going to squish it. And I'm going to recenter it. And I'm going to squish it again. And I'm going to recenter it. I'm going to squish it again. So you see I'm getting that artifacting down there. So that's how you edit the gradient tool. So if you wanted to paint things with a gradient, the first thing that you want to do is make sure that it's painting cleanly, and that you want to make sure that your orientation is correct. And by making sure that you pick the direct select tool, edit gradient texture, let's do this one now. So this one is the same thing. We're going, oops, sorry. We're going to rotate it. And we're going to squish it. And we're going to reposition it. And see, I'm getting some strange artifacting in there, that little banding. All right, so that's how you edit the gradient tool. Everyone okay? And remember that that's just a little different than the gradient tool that you would have in Photoshop. There's a gradient tool in Illustrator, obviously. There's a gradient tool in InDesign. Many applications these days have gradient tools. And remember that they become problematic because what you're actually trying to do is very cleanly go from one color into the next color. You're trying to transition from one color into the next color. And computers can handle that pretty well. You know, this is handling it pretty well, but it does cause problems for rendering, specifically for rendering. In the CMYK, I'm sorry, in the RGB world, but in the CMYK world, it's very, very difficult for printers to do gradients correctly unless you're way up above 600 DPI, right? Everyone get that? Everyone understand? You have to be really way over 600 DPI to get really clear gradients when you're printing an RGB. I'm sorry, CMYK. All right, so that's just how you handle gradients. So if I was going to do a, oh, sorry. I got my mouse and my Wacom pen fighting with each other right there. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to find this color in the background, right? Because this is what I suggested to you. Joseph, is to put a gradient in the back. And so I'm gonna eyedropper this color right here and say, what color is that? Oh, it's my BG color. So in the BG color, if I pick gradient, and I'm gonna take this color right here, click it, I'm gonna pick this color right here and just make it more black, right? And I'm gonna take the internal color and make it a little more white. There we go. So that's your gradient. So you would go blue to light blue, right? And then click the gradient editing texture and click it. I think I have to be touching the background in order for this to work. Yeah, I think you have to touch the layer. There we go. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is orient it this way and make sure it's correct. It's a linear gradient. That's fine. It looks pretty good right now. Let's see what happens if we squish it. Let's reorient it up here. Squish it again. And you can see that banding happening right there, a little artifacting happening with gradient. Now, you can move this center away from the bottom. It'll still take on the attributes of this lighter gray here. But it's a really nice way to get illustration, atmospheric look to it. All right, so right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually open this up just a little bit. All right, so that's your gradient. All right, what I wanted to do here, I'm going to turn this layer off right here. I'm going to go back here. And so let's talk about this emotion of this particular, because remember I showed you this last time we met 2 weeks ago, and then I did one that was a little bit more toned down. But let's talk about this one here for a second. I noticed that Javon just showed up here, so let me get Javon. I don't know where Rob is. And let me see what happened. Anything going on here? So this will just be your first tornado for next week. Oops. I think the end of May would be fine. This is fine. All right, so that's a placeholder for your tornado projects coming in. All right, so let's play this. So this one has a nice little back and forth twisting to it, right? It has a nice little rhythm, left and right. And last week we talked about how get these, I think I called them ribbons of clouds, which kind of makes sense. And just go look at the Pinterest board to get the idea of how you want your tornado to look like. And remember that your tornado should be a drawing. You should be thinking of what it looks like. What are you going for? And right now, it's right about that time when all of these thumbnails should be done and going. You should know what you want for your orb. You should know what you want for adding anything else to your volcano at the last second if you need it. Remember, your spring show is coming up and that your volcano should be really close to being done. So right now you should be thinking, oh, what do I want my tornado to look like? So you should be doing the thumbnails like right now as I'm talking. So as you could just listen in the background if you want. I'm just going to do a different demo for the left and right motion on the tornado. And again, I think that, you know, this is a really good thing to have like rain and the water splash and the mud bubble and steam all in one thing. that's a good thing. And then what do you want for your final? Do you want a chemistry lab, or do you want to be a little bit more artistic about it? You can do anything you want, but you have to include 4 or 5 different effects in there. And remember too, is to stay in touch with your outline, because right now they're asking for eruptions. We've already done that. Bubbles, we've already done that. You know, we have not done gun blasts and laser blasts and plasma streams and jet exhausts. You can save that one for your final. We have done explosions. I can revisit that one next week if you want. But right now we're doing part 2 of the tornado here, right? So, and then if you look ahead, we've already done lava, right? And so it's definitely for your final summoning orbs, beams, laser blasts, that kind of thing. Shattering glass we'll cover in the next couple weeks, and then you just roll right on through your final. So we've got a whole bunch of weeks here to make your final look really good. And at that same time, the principal idea for you should be making all 3 of these main projects as awesome as possible. Make your volcano as like a really good drawing. Make sure that it's got some sort of style in there. Make sure your tornado is really good, and your final. All right, so that's just reiterating those words. All right, so in here, what we're going to talk about is getting the left and right motion just a little bit more than we had it last week. All right. All right, so I think that what I would like to do here is just analyze what I've got for you. Instead of jumping into a new one, let's just take a look at what we've got here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take these guys out of here. All right, so what I'm going to do is we're just going to take a look at what I put in here for the center core of the tornado itself. And so what I've got is a line. You can consider it almost to be like the line of action for the tornado itself. And this is frame 1. Here's frame 2. We're just going to study this. We're going to come right down the core of the middle here. And we're just going to kind of look at how this line moves. And then I'm going to show you how to do it. It's very similar to what we did last week. Right down the middle. Another thing that I'm doing here is when I'm looking at this, I'm starting way outside the edge of the screen because I want to really get the gesture of this tornado as close as I can get it. All right, so let's turn these guys off here. And let's look at our line of action moving back and forth. All right. All right, so it's got a little wiggle in there, right? It looks like there's actually a place where it might be a mistake in terms of my position, but that's okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to give ourselves a new layer here, and we're going to just talk about the idea of getting a little bit more motion here. So we're going to go core, and this is going to be core 4, add and close. I'm going to turn my example here off in just a moment, but let's take one more look at it. So it's got the foot of the tornado is kind of sticking in one place. So that's the one thing in our main observation. The next observation is that there is a outside curve to the left, just above the ground plane, and then it turns into an outside curve on the right. And as it does that, it goes opposite. There's a middle section here where it goes outside curve to the left and outside curve to the right, and then quite a bit of motion in the upper atmosphere. Okay, so let's just turn that one off and study this just in terms of redoing our different kind of motion. All right, so let me see what's on my layout layer. That's my debris. So I'm just going to leave that one right there. All right, so what I want to do is I want to emulate a little bit more left and right motion. And we'll go over this again here in just a moment. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a target area right here where the tornado is hitting the ground plane. And let me check my drawing. I had a sketch here. So I'm going to give myself an outside curve to the left, an outside curve to the right, and then it comes and hits the ground plane right there. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out here maybe to frame 13 or something like that, and I'm going to add an empty drawing. And what I want to do is I want to turn my onion skin on so that I can at least see that first drawing. Perfect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce an outside curve to the right. I'm going to go an outside curve to the left in the middle. And then as I come down here, I'm just going to wiggle this one to the right just a little bit. So those are my two principal keys. If I wanted to, I could redirect this upper part here. So let me just redo that. I'm going to redo this one so that it's out here more, so that it has more of a right lean to it, if you can see what I mean there. All right, so is everyone okay with this? So what I did last week was, or 2 weeks ago, was just a very simple motion. But right now, this is going to be quite a bit more. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about the exact same thing. We're going to go from drawing number 1, and then we don't know what number it is yet, so we'll leave this blank, and this is a keyframe right here. And we're going to find the breakdown position here. So remember that keys are circled and the breakdown positions are underlined. So we don't know what those numbers are yet, but we know that we have this drawing number 1 is red. And now the one that's showing up as blue is this key position. Those are our extreme positions. Any extreme position in right or left, near or far, or up and down institutes a key position. Animators should know that inherently. Game students, this might be the second time you've heard this, but any up and down extreme position, any left or right, so this is the X position, this is the Y position, and then the Z position, Z depth. So any extreme in X, Y, Z position constitutes a key. So if your arm is moving and it goes way up above your head in an arc of motion, as that top of the arc the fingers reach the top of the arc, that should technically be a key. The other reason that things can be a key is if it's a very important drawing. If there's a mouth shape or a facial expression or something, that institutes a key. The idea of keys and breakdowns and in-betweens is for production. If you're going to do keys, then you're going pose to pose. And that's a principle of animation. It's a production thing about how do you get the animator does the keys, the lead key assistant does the breakdowns, and then the assistants do the in-betweens. And sometimes that's still done in 3D. Sometimes a shot in Maya gets handed off to a key assistant and they do the breakdown positions. And then that person might do the in-betweens as well. Remember, Maya is really good at doing the in-between. Sometimes the animator does the shot by herself. She just animates the whole thing. Oh, by the way, thanks for reminding me, Millicent. I made a comment about this last week and I was wrong. Can you believe it? Mr. Billy was wrong about something. I had made the comment that you should all be paying attention to Aardman's new production called Robin Robin, because it was supposed to be coming out at the holidays, but it is in fact out right now. I don't know what day it was released, but this is just really, really wonderful.
I just watched it last week. It was really good.
It's really wonderful. There's a sequence in here where the cat is chasing the mice and the robin. And you can tell that the person who did the story and the layouts was either a really big Tim Burton or a really big Tim Burton and Henry Selick fan, because the shadows on the wall are just really great. It's only like 32 minutes. Absolutely wonderful. Just a really, really wonderful film. You know, it's not like sugary sweet. It's just really well done. Really, really nice. So this is out. It's on Netflix. Check that out. Robin Robin. Thanks for reminding me, Millicent. All right. Does everyone understand what I've done here so far? I've drawn my 2 key extremes. I've drawn key number 1. But I don't know what number this one is yet. So right now I'm going to come into the middle here and I'm going to add another breakdown position. And I'm going to have to renegotiate my gradient so that I can see both of them. Now, here's one thing that I want to express in terms of finding this breakdown position. It could be absolutely true that the in-between, because technically it is an in-between, of the motion between the red key and the green key is a straight line down the middle of these two. But because it's a key, because it's a breakdown position, I don't think that that is the best look for this breakdown position. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to favor the red position when I'm doing this breakdown position. All right, so just a word or two on favor. The idea of going from one key to another, and this is just an example using a chart. And I'm going to say, oh, I'm going to go from key number 1 to key number 17, and maybe it's a ball that's moving in the air on the arc. So I'm going to go from key number 1 into key number 17. And if I take my breakdown position and put it right in the middle, this chart actually represents this arc straightened out so that I can see it more graphically. So this is a straight position for the breakdown position. If I want to say, I'm going to put the breakdown position right here, then that would be drawing number 9. And underlines always indicate the breakdown position. But if this was a bouncing ball, I know that it's moving fastest down here and slower up here. So if I wanted to do anything, I might say, you know what, I'm going to forget about this 9 position, and I'm going to cross this out, and I'm going to put this on thirds. And I'm going to put the 9 position here. So I'm forgetting this. I'm going to put this on thirds. And now my 9 position is over here. So what that's doing, it's favoring the 17 position, so that now I can use this position as either a 7 or a 5 or a 3, but that's not correct. If you're looking at this, you would say, well, how could the ball possibly slow into the motion and then slow out of it? Because in reality, what would be happening is that the ball is moving fast and then it slows down. So on the thirds, what I might do here is make this drawing 5 and then favor drawing number 5 a little bit here for 3 and 7, so that now you've got 11 and 15, so that there's more of a cluster up here. So this is a favor. When you're favoring this upper position, that's favor. If I wanted to do more of an exaggeration, I could say, oh, well, how many drawings do I have? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 drawings total. So what I could do is here, I've got drawing number 1, drawing number 17. The ball coming off the ground plane has got a squash down here and a stretch right here. And then I'm going to ease into the 17 position graphically. I've got 3 drawings, I need 5 more. And so now I'm just going to do it graphically. Instead of doing thirds or halves, I'm just going to say it slows down a little bit. This is drawing 5. This is drawing 7, it slows down a little bit. This is drawing 9, it slows down a little bit. 11, 13, and 15. So that this is an extreme favor. And the breakdown position here would be drawing number 5, because that's really close to the middle. So does that make sense to everybody? Just in terms of how you chart things out. So in this example here, I would say that my halfway position is drawing 5. And then if I put drawing number 3 right in the middle, it's not really accelerating. So I want to favor drawing 5 just a little bit. In animation, I think that you would just say, this is my breakdown position, and then 7, 9, 11, 15, like that. And so this will give you your extreme favor. For us, we're just going to do straight breakdowns and straight in betweens. So right now we've got our first key, our second key, and the breakdown position. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, I'm going to add a blank drawing, and I'm going to limit my onion skin just to see 2 drawings. And so unlike last week, now it's much easier to see. So now on this drawing right here, I'm just going to go right down the middle. I'm going to cross over at the cross point, and I'm going to come down, and I'm going to just right in between those 2 lines and go to the ground plane. I'm going to do the same thing here, except I'm going to limit my in between my onion skin to just a couple drawings. And I'm going to add an empty drawing. Now here I'm going to favor the green drawing because I can see that there's a nice arc right there. Oops, scrappy little line. All right, so this then has 5 drawings in it. And we can see that it's going to go from here. I'm just going to go key to key. So that's how I did this motion here. So this motion goes from the blue. Now it's moving to the right. Now it's moving to the right. Now it's moving to the right. What do I need to do now? This is a critical thinking question. What do I need to do now? Anybody? I've gone from this key position into this one. This is my breakdown. In between key position, what do I need to do now? Remember from 2 weeks ago? I need to go back. I need to go back to my first key position. So in reality, what you're doing here is you're oops. Where did I draw those charts? So in reality, what I was doing here is I'm going from my 1 position into my 17 position. But in reality, what I'm doing is I'm going from 1 into my, this is left, and this is right. And now I'm going to put an additional chart here going from 17 back into 1 so that it loops. This is the loop. And I can do this a couple of different ways. As long as I'm right here, this is my far right extreme. I can go out 3 frames here and I can add an empty drawing. I can take a look at this drawing here. That's my right side extreme. I can see that this drawing here, right here, is bringing me back. So what I can do is I can just say, you know what, I'm going to cheat. Let's see if this works. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this drawing here, copy this drawing next, this drawing next, and that should be fine. So I'm going to switch to my direct select tool, just cut through this line that selects the whole thing, copy it, go to the blank drawing, paste it, go 3 frames out, make an empty drawing. Now you have to kind of pay attention here because we have to identify our key. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to set my mark frame here as red. So that just tells me that that's my right side extreme. Red equals right. So right now I've got this one coming back. This one is blank right now. So I'm going to go to this drawing, select it, copy it, go to the blank drawing, paste it, right? I'm going to go out here 3 frames, create an empty drawing. So now I have to go 3 drawings to the left. 1, 2, 3. Let's copy this drawing. Oops, it's not taking the whole thing. Copy it, come to this blank drawing, paste it, and we should be done. Because the very next drawing is this one. So let's limit our playback. Actually, what we can do here, let's just see what this looks like going key to key. So we're just going to use our keyframe. We're watching the blue position, and it should work just fine. So that's how I did the tornado that you see here. In order to make sure that these lines move correctly, let's fill in these positions here. Extend exposure. All right, so you see what I'm doing there? I'm selecting this keyframe, shift selecting this one, and just saying extend exposure. And what that does is it, hold on, my mouse is freaking around on me. So I'm just going to hit F5 and see if that works on the keyboard. And that's not quite working. The other way to do this is if you identified this keyframe and you wanted this to be on 3s, is if I say 1, 2, 3, then it pushes all the other frames out. So the easiest, cleanest way to do this is to shift select these and then to right click and say extend the exposure. Now I don't know why it's giving me this dialog box because it's not working. So what I'm going to try to do is shift select all these and say extend exposure. And it's not quite working. I think it might be my mouse. Oops. So what I've done here is I've just like moved way off the stage. So in Toon Boom, if I hit Shift M, what is it? It's I thought it was Shift M to bring it back to the stage. Now, I don't know why it's giving me this dialog box. I'm going to do this manually because so now I'm going to go to these guys and hit my minus key. I'm going to hit my plus key twice. And on the blank frames, I'm just going to kill them with my minus key. All right, so now I'm back to my original setup here. I'm at frame 32. So I want my loop to stop at frame 32, loop and play. All right, so that gives me a really big left and right motion, right? And all I did was set my keys, left key, right key, the breakdown position in the middle, and then I did an in-between and an in-between, and then I copied it so that it went backwards. And I copied it just by identifying what this key was. Here is the right key, and I knew I needed to go back. So I just copied the other ones and pasted them in place. And it's moving really fast right now. And that's a pretty fast moving tornado. But that's an additional way to get more motion in it than the one we did last week. All right, so what I'd like to do right now is I'm going to save this. And let's take a 15-minute break. And then when we come back, I'm going to continue giving you ideas about your tornado here. And I would like to see progress on your tornado next week. I would also like to make sure that your volcanoes are near completion. So you got some work to do. Take a break. Take 20 minutes, please. Okay, welcome back, everybody. I wanted to cover a couple of things really quickly. This first thing is just for Rob because he's not here yet, but I will set our makeup day for the 22nd. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 22nd and we're going to move that to the 25th. So I'm just going to take this and grab it and move it to the 25th. I will let the school know, and I will email you a reminder that our class is going to be 4 p.m. on the 25th. Now, because this is an extra kind of circumstance, if you need me, and I am available on the 21st, I'm available on the 26th. So just let me know. Like if you can't make this day, if something comes up, I have time. These things are not completely accurate, but if you want, you can email me. Just use the Billy B at Yahoo email. I'll put that in the chat. Just use my Billy B email. There, that's in the chat. And I'll email you just through your school email to remind you that, yeah, if you need me, you can't make it on that day, then just let me know and I can meet with you just for like a one-on-one or something, either on the 21st or the 26th. Okay, so having said that, let's kind of pick up where we left off here. So what we had just done was animated that core line moving from the left to the right. I don't think we need to reiterate this too much, but let me just play it And that's supposed to be just the center of the tornado. So now what you would do is you would animate how you want the exterior lines of the tornado to move. So that's your next step, is this form right here, this shape right here. And this form, let me make sure I'm on the right layer. Oh, and remember too that everything is in perspective. So always put a grid in there. There was this, there's this thing that you can put in Toon Boom, which is like your cinematic thirds. If I can click that on and off, that's cinematic thirds. This right here tells you what your render would look like with the camera mask. And this one is your center points and your action and title safe area. You don't really need that. It would be really nice if they had a perspective button there that allowed you to see a 1-point perspective and then allowed you to move that grid and you could customize it, but it doesn't seem to be that way right now. Okay, so again, what we did is we animated that center core of the tornado. And so let me remember what layer I put this on. There, it's this layer. So this drawing one layer right here has got a couple of things going on it. Let me just toggle through this. Okay, so there's a couple of things going on just in this layer. And let me explain. I think that what I wanted to do is, I don't know why this comes on at a different frame, but I wanted to understand the overall movement. So just kind of disregard the red and the final black lines back there, and even these green lines here. Concentrate on just these black lines right here, because what I've done is I've given the volcano a cone. I've given it a cone shape. And so I'm just following along with the center line, moving the cone from right to left. Just this part right here, just from right to left and back again. Now in this version here, I don't think that I copy and pasted it. I think I just tweaked it as I went along. And you can see here that I was drawing lines down here to remind myself that that's where the debris field should be. But that's essentially the same exact thing here, where I just took the center core that I was working with, and I expanded it out to be a cone. So left and right, so that it has now the lines to it, the left and right lines to it. Now, that was kind of a strange thing. I don't know why that. All right, so this is on twos, by the way. All right, so that's what I did, is I wanted to make sure I got that rhythm working. So then what I did is I copy and pasted it into the background. So I wanted it to slide it back into the distance just a little bit. So I copied and pasted it onto this level here. And you can see what I'm doing here is right here. So what I had done, and this one is not quite so completely accurate. So let me just redo that one just a little bit, because what I was looking at was, let me actually find the layer. This will be fine just on the layout layer. All right, so what I was looking at is that the tornado moves in a circular fashion, and we see this part of the tornado in the upper atmosphere. As the tornado reaches more of the horizon, it gets a little thinner, and now that circle, that disc, is now flat. As it hits the bottom, as it hits the ground plane, now we see more of this. So these little shapes right here are somewhat inaccurate because they should be less of a circle, less of an oval here, and then even less as an oval, and then a little more. And so that's the perspective that you want on the cone itself. And this is a reiteration of the timing. And before I get into that, I think that what I would like to do is just remind everyone that the other term for atmospheric perspective is aerial perspective. Those two terms are interchangeable, aerial or atmospheric perspective. All right. All right, so then just to talk about this again, this is looking down on the tornado. So we're looking at the top of the cone. Tornadoes move in a counterclockwise fashion. Remember the one that I showed you 2 weeks ago was actually incorrect. I had animated it going clockwise. If anyone grew up in the Midwest or has ever seen a tornado, any kind of atmospheric motion that's moving counterclockwise is terrifying. It's just like this innate human thing that if we see clouds moving counterclockwise, just go somewhere else. All right, so what we did here is I was talking about the number of drawings to go around the core. And this core right here, this has ribbon clouds that are moving around the core, and that there are 6 of them. And remember that this little line right here represents our field of vision. And so that in this orange one here, we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different ribbons of smoke. And I think that you drawing this over for yourself is a very good idea because it just reminds you that, hey, look, if you start with this one right here being drawing number 1, and then this one here being drawing number 2, and then this being drawing number 3, drawing number 1 is going to look like it's full ribbon. And again, I think that you want to go in and you want to figure out what you want your ribbons to look like. Go back to your Pinterest board and do your research, do your reference. What do you want these to look like? You can draw it like this, and then in Toon Boom, you can put a glow and a blur on it and just make it look like vapors if you want. That's absolutely fine. But remember that the overall critique is going to be aesthetic. This word aesthetic is very important to what we do here. It's like, this is the thing that drives this class, is the aesthetic. We're not just doing the timing and spacing and getting the animation to work correctly, but we want to talk about the aesthetic. Remember, which is the opposite of anesthetic. Those two words are related to each other. Anesthetic is the opposite of sensitivity. So you want to make this, the aesthetic is the sensitivity to make things interesting or good or have good appeal. All right, so having said that, this little ribbon is going to look like this. This one, it's going to start to be a little foreshortened, right? This is number 2. Number 3 is definitely going to be foreshortened. Following your rules of perspective up here, if it's going around the core right in the middle, it's just going to be just a dot. It's just going to be like a little shape or something. And so that's drawing 3. In drawing number 4 back here, we might see the tail of it. That's all you might see, or you might not see it at all, depending on the position and how wide you made your tornado. Number 4, drawing number 4 in this example, you might not see it at all. Drawing number 5, it's again, this is going to be foreshortened. Now you might see just a little head of it coming around. Drawing number 6, you're going to see it coming out just a little bit more over here. I'm sorry, that was 5. And then it goes back into drawing 1. So this is the sequence right here. And I'll put like a little square right here. So this little sequence right here is for this orange right there. Does that make sense to everybody? All right, so having this as kind of like a key reminds you about what these shapes should look like and where the timing and spacing is. So now let's go out to the green. In the green, there are 8 of them. And we'll start with just the same position. In position number 1, the ribbon is going to look like this. In position 2, we're going to see most of it. So we're just going to see most of it. It's just moving a little bit more. In drawing 3, you can see that our cone of vision here starts to foreshorten it a bit. Drawing number 4, we're going to see it sliding behind the tornado. Drawing number 5 is the drawing that we might not see. In drawing number 5, we might see just the tip of the tail of it. And in drawing number 6, we might see just the little front of it starting to come out. In drawing number 7, it's going to be very much foreshortened. And in drawing number 8, it's going to loop back into this position here. So it's just going to go like that. So this is the green. This is green. This is orange. Or does that make sense to everybody? I think doing a key like this is important just for a couple of different reasons. So let's go over the red and the blue here just a second. So now in this red one, there's a couple of things I'm going to put like a little exclamation point right here. Now the reason for this is because if you've got 12 drawings on 2s, this is going to equal 1 second of animation. If you are at 24 FPS, so that means the ribbons are going around mark and mark, mark, mark. So that is pretty realistic that the ribbons of clouds can go all the way around this tornado in 1 second. At 14 frames on 2s, now you've got 28 frames. You know, that's still pretty good. So, and you decide that how do you want this to work out? Because right now we have this looping set at 32 frames. That's the whole cycle here. So what happens is that you start your loop for the tornado just on whatever ribbon layer you want to call it on frame 1, and then you go 8. Well, in this instance here, you're going to go 6 frames out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it doesn't matter where you are because then you just draw another one. Then you start on the second or third drawing and draw 6 of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It doesn't matter. That's the most important thing here is that the main loop is 32 frames. We know that. That is absolutely correct. It works. It's time honored. But you could have the slow loop up here where the clouds are going for 32 drawings, and that would be 64 frames, but you just keep drawing them over and over again. You just go through your loop. You start on frame 1, go to frame 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, and you keep going all the way around it. And remember, this is key here, that when your cone of vision is here and you're looking out, you are not going to see very much of the ribbons of clouds that are hiding behind the core of the tornado. All right, is everyone okay? Is everyone any questions about this? So there's lots of things to consider as you're doing your ribbons. So 1 is your cone of vision. The second is how many drawings. If it's really close to the core, like at the bottom, then they're moving faster and there's less drawings. As it goes up into the upper atmosphere, there's more. Pay attention to your perspective. Keep it in perspective. And once again, the idea of you don't have to match these timings exactly to 32 frames. You just keep going. Because in Toon Boom, you just hit your G key and that it goes to the next keyframe. And then just be careful here because you want it to go to the first keyframe. If you don't have your loop limiter set on 32, it'll actually give you an extra frame down here and you don't want it. Okay, so again, anyone have any questions right now? Okay, all right, so let's go through this and let's do a couple more ribbons here. Let's see what I've got turned on. All right, so that little chord thing needs to, I have to figure out what I need to turn on here. All right, those are our examples from before. That was my rough layer. So I just did the blue in rough here, and you can kind of see that I stopped. I got the idea of what I wanted the shape of the tornado to look like, so I just turned that off. All right, just for, yeah, I'm gonna leave my perspective on, never mind. All right, I have to figure out where this first tornado is here. Forgot what I called it. Give me 1 second. There we go. All right, so now I just need to turn one layer off, and that is this layer. I believe it's this one. Nope. Okay, there we go. All right, so once again, the process that we used was figuring out how much left and right motion we wanted. In the example that I did 2 weeks ago, I did one that was just pretty limited, and I did it pretty limited because it was very much in keeping with the reference that we use from the board. So I'm looking at my special effects board, and that one that leads it is always the one that's pretty good. You know, you can see that if you wanted to try something that was really, really pushing the perspective on the bottom, pushing the perspective on the top, it can be done. You just have to plan it that way. This again, this is just 32 frame cycle. Animators can put a little character in there if they want. It's basically the same thing. The motion that goes around the tornado can be perfectly horizontal, or it can corkscrew upwards. Tornadoes should have a lightning in there. It's up to you if you want it or not. But in reality, tornadoes often have lightning associated with them. So once again, we're just looking at getting our mind's eye to pick what is a good shape. What is a good shape? What is a good movement and trying to do a couple of things simultaneously. Now, I'm sure that this was coming out of the Flash era, where you've just got like this little cone shape right here, just wiggling around a little bit. It's not changing shape too much. So this is just as simple as it gets. This one right here is as simple as it gets. And remember too that I'm not always pinning stuff on the board here to say, hey, this is the exact way to do it. Sometimes I pin stuff on the board to say, hey, look at this critically. You know, if you do want the tornado to be inverted so that there's a sense of forced perspective, and that the tornado is really wide on the bottom and narrow at the top, that's something to consider. It's up to you. What drives that is this. What did you think about when you were planning out your tornado itself? All right. So, and I think that this was one of the first things. So I like this one a lot. Remember that this one, I believe, is pretty erratic. It moves left and right. There's lightning in there. The debris is just going around the tornado, which is kind of inconceivable. The debris would not do that, technically, unless it was very light. If it was wood and building materials, it would be splaying out from the tornado itself. So this one is okay. You've got the little darker blue ribbons going around the horizontal. In the critical analysis of this, there's a series of white lines that corkscrew upwards. So instead of just having it go in a circle, you move it up a little bit every time you draw it. And then it's going to have to cycle for probably one more loop in order to get it to go to the top. This one is the one that I often just go to because it's pretty simple. There's only 16 or 18 drawings in here. You've got good debris. I like the blue and light blue and white and the dark blue. That's kind of nice. You can pick whatever color you want. It's really up to you. But you can see the difference in the ribbons that are going around the core, moving in 6 frames, and then 8 frames, and then 12 and 14, and then these ribbons out here in the back, these dark gray ones, are moving quite a bit slower. You know, so this is a good one. And you don't see that much wiggle in the core. It's just kind of got how we started last week. All right, so going back to our example here. So let's just identify this layer here. This should be my ribbon. What I'm going to do is give myself a drawing 4 layer. And I'm going to put that in the right place. Oops, didn't take it. Where did it go? So it was in order. All right, so, oh, hey, I'm misbehaving today. Yeah, that's weird. It's misbehaving. I'm going to put drawing 4 right here. Yeah, it's not exactly what I want, but that's okay. We're just going to go with this. All right, so over here, I'm going to call this D4. I'm going to give myself a new color, D4. Yeah, and you're right, Millicent. I should rename the layer so that it says D4, but at least you can understand where I'm going with this. D4, these ribbons are a light color and then a brown color. So let me make these a little bit more red. All right, that's fine. All right, so let's animate in our drawing 4 layer. Keeping in mind what we're doing here, we're going to be looking at this middle layer, either the 6 or the 8, or I'm sorry, either the 8 or the 12. And I think that the more ribbons that you have, the better. So on drawing 4, number 1, we're going to start in this position. So I'm just going to draw here, and I'm going to fix this color to make it a little brighter. There we go. All right, so I'm going to just give myself a look to this. And just remember, if what we're doing here, I mean, you could actually draw this out and have it sitting in front of you so that you know where your planning is. But for us right here, we're just going to go 2 frames out. Our onion skin is on, it's before and after. And so on our second drawing, it's going to curl around behind. And I'm registering it to this little piece of smoke. I'm going to go 2 frames out, and then I don't see it. So just keep in track, just do one little ribbon at a time so I don't see it. What I'm going to do is just make a little mark right there so that it fills in the in-between. They're going to come here, and I'm going to pull the stage over a little bit. I'm going to make a mark out here because we don't see this one at all. That's the one we don't see. All right, and then this one, I don't know, you know, maybe we see just the little tip of it like this. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one's going to be 8. So this one, this is number 6. And now it comes around. And then this is the 8th drawing. And I'm going to open the onion skin up to see where the first one was so that we can do the in-between properly. So I'm just going to get this ribbon to be like this. And that one's just stationary. I'm going to fill in this by hitting the plus key and then just play this. And it's working, but now because our loop is 32 frames, we just need to continue it. So this was our first drawing, and then our second drawing was over here. So you can continue this position or this shape, but the position has to be registered to the movement that you do with the core. So then just match it to the core. This one you don't see, so put a mark out here. This one you don't see, so put a mark out here. On this one, you can kind of see it maybe coming around the corner a little bit. You know, it's pretty fat out there. And then here. And here. And here. Now, I think I said this 2 weeks ago, but I'll say it again. This is actually pretty forgiving. You know, tornadoes are messy beasts, so that we had this going around twice, but it's only like 1.5 times here. Watch, it'll work. There's a couple of drawings that are actually missing, but it actually works. And it works because you are using the entire 16 drawings on 32 frames here. It's working. So let's do another one, drawing number 4. Let's do one with a different set of timings though. So let's bring this one closer to the core and let's start in a different place, which you can absolutely certainly do. Drawing number 1. So this one is just gonna curl around the core right here. And now I'm gonna just use my G key, which just goes frame to frame. And now I don't even need to think about filling in quote unquote the extra frame. I'm just going to go to the next keyframe. So here I might see just a little bit of it. And then just now, because the core is moving to the right, maybe I see just a little bit. I don't see the next one. So you don't have to do this out here because the keyframes are already set. So here you can get away with not doing this one either. This one, now start to bring it around. This one, now it comes around a bit more. This one, now it comes up into full ribbon. And this one, it cuts behind it. This one, just the tail end of it. Keep going. You don't see it. You don't see it. You don't see it. It starts to come around. This one, it starts to come around a bit more. And more. Follow the shape of your tornado so that it's going to register it correctly. And on this one, it's right there. So that one works perfectly. So watch just that one, right? Perfect. Let's do another one. Let's start this one on any random frame. This frame right here. So on this frame right here, we're going to start right here. So this is a full view of the ribbon. And then go to the next keyframe. So now it starts to go behind it. Next one, you see just the tail end of it. This one, oh, we do see a tail end. This one, it's gone. Don't draw it. This one, gone. Don't draw it. This one, yeah, you have to decide. Maybe the tip. Next one, maybe it comes around. This one comes around. This one, oh, I don't like that. Comes around. And the next one, this is our first keyframe, so we're not seeing what the last one was, right? Because our onion skin just won't do that. So just keep this one in your eye and then put it here. Put it here. Put it here. Gone, gone. Maybe just the front of it here. And I think that should be enough. All right, so these are rough, and I would clean them up just like I've got them here. Obviously, I've painted the front color a lighter color and the inside darker, which is kind of a cool thing. All right, so let's get say again on this layer number 4. Let's show you how to get stuff to go up and around. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're just kind of start on drawing number 4, and we're going to bring a ribbon of cloud up right here. We're just going to keep this simple. And remember, we're just going to toggle through this. So right now it's coming around, but it's also coming up. And this is just going to be rough. So I'll go back in and define the shape of this again more carefully as I go around. But this is the 8 frame. So I just want to get this to come up, and it's going to come up and around. This one we might see it. No, we don't see it. But instead of drawing it down here, we're going to start bringing it up. And this one's in the way. This one's in the way. That one's in the way. That one's in the way. So now we're going to just bring it up here. Lots of things to consider here. We don't see these. Maybe we'll see it here. And it's going to come out of view. Nope, it's not coming out of view. We will definitely see it coming up here. You know, and at one point here, it gets immersed. It becomes immersed in the actual smoke in the top. So let's see what that looks like. You can see it curling up there. All right, do we have any questions about this? The best thing that you can do is just make sure you've got a set of clouds that are moving on, you know, I think I picked 16 at first, actually. Or no, I'm sorry, I picked 8. But I knew that I wanted this cycle to be 32 frames. So I did 8, but I did a couple of them, and so that they were coring around here, and I had set the keyframes for drawing 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so let's just look at that again. Okay, so then what I had done was the debris. So on the debris, I have a couple of debris layers. And let's kind of zoom in on this. Oops, I'm in the wrong window. All right, so on my layout, you can see that I've got my arc of motion. So there's my arc of motion, and you can give yourself as many layouts as you want. I think I might have used this right here for my layout, which is strange because, oh no, I used this D1. Let me, oh yeah, I used D1. And so what I was giving myself is a bunch of arcs. And so I'm looking at this just in terms of how far away from the tornado that I am. I'm maybe a half a mile or something like that. And so these tracks for the debris, you want a bunch of them that are obvious, right? That are different in space than all the other ones. And so on this one, you can put the little hashtags in there where the, oh, you know what? I did those on the wrong layer. Hold on a second. I want those to be on the layout layer. All right, and then this one might come right up into the camera, right? You could just kind of leave it sit right there. So on our debris layer, let's do this one first. And again, I think that we're just rolling through this. We're just going to start on any random layer here. I think I used the red for the debris, but I didn't name it correctly. All right, I'm just going to make this one, well, I'm not going to make it red. I'm going to use this purple color so I can follow it more carefully. So I'm going to use this one that's coming up into the camera. All right, so on this frame right here, it's on debris 1. I'm just going to make a mark here. I'm going to go to the next keyframe. It's going to come up a little bit more. And it's coming up into the camera, so it's going to get bigger. And it's reaching the top of its arc here. So it's kind of actually easing into its motion, its vertical momentum. And now it starts to accelerate. Now we're back at the first keyframe, so we don't see where it was. So now just keep it in your mind's eye. It's right here. All right, so let's see what that looks like. All right, so that's okay. So on the debris layer, let's start in another random frame. Let's do this one over here. Next keyframe. Again, you can almost see it. You're just going to do one at a time so you're not confusing yourself. So it's going to slow down. It's going to ease into the top of the arc here. And then it's going to speed up again. And I'm not even paying attention to where I am in the timeline because I'm just hitting the G key to go to the next. So this one's going to bounce. And I'm just going to let it sit there. Let's see what that looks like. All right, perfect. Let's do one over here. Let's just pick this one, debris right here, random. It's going to start on this arc that we drew. Put it here, coming up. It's going fast. Then it slows down a little bit. We're at key number 1. Slows down a little bit. Slows down a little bit more. Now it accelerates. So ease out of the key position. It gets a little faster. Oh, I don't like where that one is. I'm going to put that one here. And then I'm going to have this one bounce too. All right, so one of the things that I have said in the past is that these are construction material. This is parts of houses or buildings or something that the tornado is just tearing apart. All right, so you can see that that purple one is working, and I think the more that you do, the more awesome this is going to be. Is that these don't have to just be circles. They could be little rectangles. They can be pieces of wood. So on this one right here, we're just going to draw a stick of wood. And the stick of wood is going to be tumbling. Now, literally, it would stay there. If it flew and fell, it would stay there, right? But here, we're just going to let it go away. It's okay. I wouldn't recommend drawing any more than a couple of pieces of debris coming up into the camera, because it just gets a little obvious where the cycle starts and ends. But let's talk about debris number 2. And I believe debris number 2 is just this little mist down here. And let me, and I think I talked about this before, but let me just reiterate it. So this one, I believe, was, I'm picking up some weird color here. Hold on a second. All right, I believe it's this green color, and I believe I used the brush, which was set at one of the charcoal settings. Oh, right here, Dusty Pastel. So I used Dusty Pastel, and it was set at 84 pixels. It was a brush. So, and I'm just kind of randomly putting dust. Oops, I don't want that. So that was the act of me dragging my brush too much. All right, so then these are already keyframed out. So you would just go to the next keyframe and just draw another bunch of dust. Oops, dragging my brush just a little too much. Again, the tornado's churning up the ground. There's grass and dirt and rocks and stuff. So you just go through this frame by frame and you put this random, use the same kind of thinking that you used in your pixie dust, where you want the marks that you're making to be in a different place all the time. Otherwise the motion will stall. And it's also kind of a mask, you know, you're kind of covering up in the area where the position of the bottom line of the tornado is on the ground plane. You're covering up, you're masking where it's actually hitting. All right, so I'm just drawing a bunch of dust. Going to the next frame. I think I drew a bunch of these last 2 weeks ago, but now I'm just kind of filling it out a little more. You know, a lot more in the middle. Test to see what it looks like. You can see I've got quite a bit more to do. It's there, but it's not on every frame. All right, so let's see what else we need here. I'm going to turn my perspective off at this point. Let's see what we've got. In order to dress this up, let me turn my layout off as well. You know, at one point you can start to draw the debris without your lines of action. If you know you're getting into it, you can just draw a few to get yourself started, but then just go at it. Remember that because the motion is actually pretty fast, that it's fairly forgiving. And I like this amount of left and right motion in the core, just because it proves that you knew how to do it right. Now, one thing that I don't like here is that there's no ribbons right here. So let us go back to our ribbon layer. So on this one, we're just going to do, we're going to add another ribbon up here. Let's figure out what frame it was. So right here, I'm actually going to turn my onion skin off. Yeah, like right in here, which is right near the end right here. So I'm using the blue color here. I probably should use a debris 4. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start one here. Oops, I'm in the wrong tool. So I want to fill in this space right here. And we're going to use the same technique that we just used. So right now I want probably 12 going around. So next keyframe, onion skin on. So this one is going to come over here. It's going to move about this far. Again, this is just a rough. I'll go back in and put a good line on it later. But now you can see that it's kind of tucking behind down over there. This one, the jump between the last keyframe and the first frame is pretty big. So we might actually see this right here. So get those to cross over. But this one, we don't see it. This one, we don't see it. This one, we don't see it. It might be right here. Commit to it. We got one right here. It's coming out. It's coming out a little bit more. Now a little bit more. You know, and right about now, it's like I'm in my mind's eye, I'm wondering whether I hit the actual keyframe correctly that I wanted. I'm wondering whether I got that open space. All right, let's see what it looks like. All right, so that's working. I want to identify the keyframe, or actually what you're doing is they're all become keyframes, but I want something out here. So even though this one that I just drew it's on this keyframe, I want another one that's like out here, just to think about the aesthetics of this space. Oops, and I did that on the, make sure that, so I drew on frame 2, but it actually belongs to drawing number 1. So pay attention to that. All right, so this is good. So turn your keyframe back, or your onion skin back on. And now this one is going to come around. And again, I'm just drawing this roughly. And it's going to continue. Don't see it. Don't see it. And it kind of gets absorbed into the other one. So you can stop, keep going around. All right, so let's take a look at our overall composition. I'm just taking a look at all one of my keyframes. So now what I think I want to do is go back to my color here and my blue color, and get some more ribbons that are going around the center. We're on drawing number 4. Picking up this color correctly. All right, usually I like being really clean with this. I'm not picking up this color. I think it's this one. And what I'm going to do is I just want to add another bunch of, oh, hold on, I'm on the wrong layer. No, I'm okay. All right, so I want to just add more ribbons around the core. All right, so this one I'm just going to do manually because I'm picking up a bunch of strange stuff on the onion skin. All right, it's behind that one, so I don't need it. All right, so now I'm going to put one here. Continue. Here. Here. You want this as awesome and as crazy and as dangerous looking as possible. Again, you're moving counterclockwise. And so you can just kind of fill in one right here. It moves. It's in the middle. It moves. It's over here. And start a new one. That one's gone already, so start a new one. And these are just going around the core. These are not going up. They're just going around the core. As soon as you get yourself into the rhythm of it, you can kind of see that you're not going to get into trouble. All right, let's see what that looks like. All right, so now the next thing that I wanted to just talk about, or just a couple of things. First of all, I think what we need to do is we have this drawing is our debris. Or I'm sorry, that's the core. So these guys here on drawing 3, I'm going to add a new layer. And we're just going to keep this drawing 4. I'm going to put it, hopefully this will let me do it. It wasn't doing this before. Yeah, it's putting things in weird places. All right, so what I need now is the clouds in the upper atmosphere. So we're doing either the 14 or the 28, even 32 drawings out there. And so let's get those moving. So it's going to be on 2s. We're going to use a variation of the sketch tool here. We're going to call this drawing 4. All right, so now we need to fill in this back atmosphere up here. And we have it on our layout. We have it on our drawing here. We have it on the example, this stuff back here. So let's, and you can just imagine, this is not hard. Drawing number 4, let's make it a little more gray so we know to change it later. Ooh, maybe even a little bit more yellow. Okay. All right, so let's start with a cloud that is just really fat and juicy and like way out here. On 2s with the onion skin turn on, you're going to need this at least for the first pass. And make sure you're in your mind's eye as you've got this thing set back there, is that now this cloud right here is going to be moving more slowly into the background. It goes behind. All right, so now you have to set your keyframes first. So now we start to see the tail end of it. You have to set your keyframes. You don't have to worry about making sure the shapes are closed just yet. This is still just kind of your rough layer. It's moving quite a bit more slowly. And now one thing that you might be thinking about is that in our example of the perspective is that we don't see it. It's so up into perspective that this larger cloud here comes up and now it's out of camera, it's out of the range. So all you need to do is draw the tail end of it coming up and out and away. And see what that looks like. You should see it moving slowly. It's there, it's working. So now start a new one. So on this one, let's start one like it's on our 4th drawing here. And so let's just start a new one. Let's start one that's really far in the background, maybe a little smaller. And again, I think that it's good that you start things on different frames. All right, so this one, all right, like that go for 2. Let's see what that one looks like. Okay, so you just got to keep doing this. Start at a random frame right here. So let's bring this one over here. Again, these are in the deep distance, so you want the sense of perspective on their circular motion is oval to us now. Put them in the background, make sure that you can paint them some transparent color. They're moving quite a bit more slowly. And again, we don't see all of them as they go off the screen. I guess the real trick is to make sure you just don't get visually confused. This is a good example right here of being visually confused. So I got this one. If I fill in the missing frame to make the first complete cycle of the 32 on the debris 4 layer, when I go to the drawing number 1, I have to remember to put a couple of drawings over here so that it actually continues to go off the screen. So something like that. Let's take a look at it. All right, so now let's start random, like in the middle over here. And let's like get one that's really far in the distance. And you can see that I'm thinking about the size of it, the scale of it. So on the next drawing, it's really only moving a little bit. So it's only moving over there. So this one, it's going to move over here. Might see the end of it right here. So this one's technically like 32 different ribbons, but we're not going to see the ones that are up close to the camera. Just do them one at a time so you don't get confused. And remember where this one was, because the next one's over here. And then just test it to be sure. Make sure that you don't have things that are going backwards. And just, you want it to be complete. So think about all of these things in the deep background. Think about your debris. Think about ribbons that are moving really close to the core and faster. Think about ribbons as they go out away from the center core, that they're moving with 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 drawings. These guys back here are moving closer to 32. So you've got a lot of things to think about there. In this whole sequence here, you could put lightning. You know, it's very common that you have lightning with a tornado. This example doesn't have it. As long as you have lightning in your volcano, you don't need it. But it would be cool to dress this one up with lightning as well. And remember that you don't need to do the white frame, black frame strobing, because we're really just too far away. We really are just way too far away in order to see the whole thing. Which reminds me, thanks for reminding me. I believe I posted like this one. That's just insane. I've never seen lightning like this. That's just crazy. I mean, it's beautiful, but it's so crazy. It looks fake. That's like crazy. And then I thought that I put another one in there. I think I might have mentioned this 2 weeks ago. This one, I think, yeah, I did mention this 2 weeks ago, just because we don't actually see the lightning, we just see the flashing. And it's just lighting up a core area behind the clouds. That's actually pretty easy to do. You just have to make sure that your transparency is correct and the glow and your blur nodes are in the right places. All right, and then I thought there was one more. Oh yeah, this one was the first one I found. That's just nuts. Again, that one's just like the first one we saw, where it's so incredible that your eyes are kind of wondering if it's true or not. All right, so I would like to see in your outline, oh, not outline, in discussion mode. I just want to make sure that these are all in the right place. So your volcanoes should be well on the way. You know, you are past midterm. And so this volcano file right here, I should have a whole bunch of stuff in there for next week. Yes, I only see, this is the one thing we talked about with Joseph today, right? I gave you notes for that. And you should also be thinking about what your layout is looking for your tornado. So in this tornado layer right here, the best thing that you could possibly do is go and look at your references. What do you want to do? Do a drawing of it so that you know it's just 4:7, which is really close to the 1.77 aspect ratio. Figure out what you want to do. Do you want it to wiggle a lot? Do you want it to move a little? You should do a sketch like this, or a series of sketches. Really, in this folder right here, you could even have sketches of what you're thinking of doing for your final, and then you'll be that much far ahead of yourself. But this volcano, you should have a volcano in here and this tornado file right here for next week, right? And remember, we are still coming out of this stupid pandemic, and so I'm lenient on deadlines because I know life is not the easiest. These files are open all the way to the end of May. All right, let me check, let me refresh this. All right, do I have any questions about how to go about the production for your tornado? I've given you a whole bunch of stuff here in one file, which is showing you one way to do the core, another way to do the core, copying and pasting the core, doing your debris, doing the smoke down here, which wasn't quite done. I've given you the hint that these don't have to just be circles, that they can be pieces of wood or lumber or even cows. In the past, students have just copy and pasted a cow along this arc of motion, or a tractor, or a duck. It doesn't matter. You can the debris can be anything. There should just be a bunch of it. Remember that this is a portfolio piece, so you want people to look at this 32 frame cycle and just go, wow, this is kind of cool. You know, almost to the point where, how'd you do that, right? So follow your rules of perspective. As these things come more towards the horizon, the arc of the motion should be more lateral. And then more open towards the bottom. Do I have any questions, comments, complaints, conundrums, criticisms? Nothing? Anything that starts with a C or a hard K sound? All right, so you've got a lot of stuff to do. You've got a lot of stuff to think about and do. So for next week, you should be well on your way with your volcano. And again, what I'll do is I'll make a note for myself that I'm going to do another sketch here that is the water. It's going to have rain, splash, bubble, and steam, keeping it in the water theme. And as soon as I get that one done, I'll show it to you. You don't need it for, you've got enough stuff to do right now, but I will definitely show it to you next week. I've actually got a couple of the volcano ones that are really stylized. And I'll just show you my sketchbook. So I think what I was going for was as much stylization as possible. And as long as you're in doing your volcano, you don't have to go backwards at all. That would be kind of silly. But I was kind of thinking of doing the smoke like this, giving it a real stylized look to it. You know, that could be really fun, right? And then I took it to another drawing and thought, you know, what would that whole composition look like? So I'm just kind of thinking about how all parts of it are going to be stylized, the pond, the murkiness, right? I thought there was one more that I had here. Ah, yes, one more. And this one that's very sketchy, but you can kind of see what I was thinking about. The water splash being a lot more dominant. And so this one has the little stylized volcano more in the front, the lightning, a giant mud bubble, and then a big water splash, lightning. So this was just me kind of taking what we've been doing to more of an extreme style. And remember that what I mean by that is very simply what we were looking at all of these things are pretty close to what Mother Nature looks like, or whatever gameplay might look like. But I think there was one thing that just kind of caught my eye for the stylization, volcanoes right in here. This just really kind of cool. You could even go vector graphics if you wanted. I think I had one student try that. It's not as easy as it looks. It's kind of cool, but it's not as easy as it looks. This one right here, it's kind of brilliant, right? And remember that it's kind of obvious to put fire in your volcano. So I think it was this one that I was looking at, just in terms of just how graphic it is. It is really cool, but I think that what you need to do is get the motion working first before you actually vectorize or put this flat graphic style in there. Remember that one's on the board. All right. Anybody? Questions? Questions? Things you're worried about? This one right here, I would consider to be about half done. I would want more ribbons of smoke, more ribbons of clouds. I would want to paint the core. I would want to make sure that my debris is working. I would paint this background a different color. In this one, I might put a silhouette in there of like a cityscape. And what I mean by that is something that like this. So on this background layer, what I might do is kind of think about buildings that are in the big distance, just whatever. And then all of a sudden there's taller buildings. Something, whatever it is. And it kind of helps define this space a little bit more too. And then over here too. Again, it's just a sketch. I would clean it up later. Just the idea of getting stuff in the background here. Again, I'm thinking, cityscape or what have you. I might even put like a tree up here in the really close to the camera. Maybe the same tree, so you're like hiding in the bushes. And something down here, just to give yourself an interesting composition where your focal point is in the middle. Something like that. Okay. Progress for next week on everything. Make sure your fire is good. Make sure your smoke is good. Your volcano is coming along. And make sure that I have enough stuff to critique, right? Typically in a class, I would let you work, but it's a little strange on Zoom. So go at it. Get yourselves busy. I want to see as much stuff in those folders as possible. Remember to do a sketch of your tornado first before you start it. Do a thumbnails or 4 squares by 7 squares. And you should start thinking about what your final is going to look like. Go back and look at the outline and make sure that you have plasma blasts, glass breaking, orbs. You can do a different kind of fire. You can do a different kind of steam. I've shown you the examples of those. We can do those again next week. All right, and then remember that I will contact the school. We will meet at 4 o'clock on Monday, April 25th. But make a note for yourself if that time is not completely convenient for you, that I have time open during the week leading up to that Friday the 22nd, or even after Monday, just to make sure that all of your discussion questions are answered in 2 weeks from now. Okay, everybody okay? Let you out a little early. You could go chase the dog around the backyard. All right, we'll see you next week, everybody.
See you next week.
Okay,
See you
ciao
next
for now.
week.